A big problem that's occurring in United States culture and society is how certain citizens living in the United States let cultural norms affect their mind and their behavior. The way U.S. citizens allow different cultural values to control them negatively impacts their behavior in different aspects of the country they live in itself. One perspective to look at is the cultural lens. Why is it important? I know that from personal experience it's hard to fit in, and a lot of times I let different stereotypes affect how I change and live my life. A lot of times this happens throughout society, starting from different individuals in the society, and it spreads out and allows more people to be influenced by these ideas. In a research study done by Francesca Baker, a social researcher of 9 years, it was proven that the norms of peer pressure have a very significant impact on individuals and their responses to certain actions. It also deeply affects how they will respond if they are led to believe that majority of people involved in certain activities will do things they are being told to take part in. In this study, 2 groups were sat down in 2 different rooms and were told to study and document what they looked at a line. In this line, it was totally different, but they did not know. Being separated, they were documenting their own lives, and when they were told to go into a room together and share their ideas on these images, a lot of times their ideas and documentations changed based on what other people said. They changed to different groups when they clearly knew what they were talking about. Social influence can lead subjects to doubt their own knowledge when it is contradicted by the majority of the group's members, or to exhibit public conformity and avoid questioning group norms. The human mind learns to accept certain behavior when it's performed by significant people. In another study done by Albert Bandura in his Bobo doll experiment, children were sat down in a room and were told to watch a film with adults and a Bobo doll. In this room, adults performed, they were attacking this doll. The children didn't have to significantly or specifically follow the same actions that the adults did, but when the children were told to go into these rooms, they went and performed basically the same manner as the adults did on this doll. This proves that when children were looking at someone that they're raised to look up to and act as them, it relates back to how they allow it to affect them. My connection to my topic in the stimulus source is we were focused on societal change and change as a big group. But to look deeper into the connection is how it affects individuals and how by starting at the roots, it will deeply affect and spread out into the society. So a cultural norm, I feel like, in U.S. society specifically today is technologizing and further advancing their machinery and trying to make it more efficient and easier for humans to live their lives. The work gets done faster, but these are positives. But what leads into the negatives is society stops caring about the environment. They don't realize that the environment is being polluted and demolished, and they focus more on the idea that these machines are doing the work for them and it's making it easier for them, but they don't focus on the fact that the world that they live in is being negatively impacted. A lot more money will be spent on these machinery and advancing technology, and there's also loss of jobs in this movement. My solution is to implement a teaching and working a new solution and implementing them in schools. There can be certain classes or movements that are granted to new schools or starting at young ages in grades such as kindergarten through grade school, and even continued out through high school and older years. In these classes, it is important to focus on how children are allowed to be themselves and growing up. They don't have to follow society's norms. They can make a change on their own. If it's implemented from a young age, it's kind of like Pandora's Experiment and Bobo Doll, they were focused on acting as the adults did. So coming from a teacher's perspective and children's and students and learning from young ages, they learn from a young mind and it's implemented in their mind and they grow along with it. If it's taken seriously, it can be done now. It will take time, but it's simply worth moving. You have to introduce the new ideas, but you also have to inform the world around. You can't just put it in schools and make sure, or you can't just put it in schools and expect the children to take this idea upon themselves. You have to implement it around who they grow up with and who's teaching it. You have to make sure you inspire them to want to do this for themselves. You it's not a demand. You have to set up programs to organize. The system is new, it'll take time. But in order to make this happen, you may have to do case studies, you may have to try to get children to understand what is happening, which will take an estimate of a very long time, but I believe that it will have more positive outcome on not only the economy, but the environment and society itself. A few setbacks from this is by implementing movements all across America to make citizens realize what our country is into, it may not be taken seriously. Funding would be a huge problem, but a lot of times they can find inspirations or people who would want to fund for them, they can sponsor them. If someone is really interested in this topic and they want to make a more positive effect on children and how the country is going to prosper, they can learn to accept it and they might find a new source of money.
Okay, a couple of questions for you, Brooklyn. The first one is, how valid and reliable are the sources you've used? How do you know? And which sources didn't work?
I think pretty much a lot of my sources were reliable because a lot of them came from psychologists themselves in studies that were done on children from past times and evolved. So by using this, it kind of like helped me reflect and like more reliable on the psychologists since they specialize in this area. Some of the sources that didn't work were sources that were like more opinionated and biased because they were just trying to make it seem like they were against society. So I had to kind of see both sides of the story.
Okay, and then your second question is, what advice would you have for other researchers who consider this topic?
I would say to look into more the mind of individuals because if you do a scientific lens, you can see how it affects the brain, like not necessarily like evaluating the thoughts, but seeing if there's parts in the brain that would affect certain thoughts.